Hi everyone, my name is Kristen and welcome to my channel where we explore an experiential approach to manifestation, or as I like to call it, the law of reflection. In today's video, I want to talk to you all about the hero's journey or the healing journey as it pertains to the manifestation process and how this journey it's actually not really a journey at all, and how really it is always just the call back to our true self as divine love, God, or consciousness. To illustrate this, I will be using my tarot deck yet again because it's such a good way of understanding this. And you don't really need to be familiar with tarot in order to understand this video. So let's get right into it. The hero's journey illustrates the path of self that believes it is separate. The self that goes through all of these trials and tribulations and suffering in order to get to the end, i.e., return to divine love or God, which is our true nature. And this is represented in the tarot. So if you're not familiar with tarot, there are 78 cards in the deck, and each card represents the different stages of the hero's journey, the different themes on that journey that the self goes through in order to realize the truth of who you truly are, which is that you are not really the self at all. So the story of tarot starts with the Fool, representing the innocence of the self and the new beginning as it embarks on the spiritual awakening journey. The Fool does not know what is yet to come. So we could also think of the Fool as the naive self that is in the beginning stages. And the journey ends with the last card in the deck, which is the World. That is wholeness, completion, abundance, the end of a cycle, awakening, coming back home to the truth of who you really are, divine love. Now, in the hero's journey of tarot, or the Fool's journey, each card represents the themes that the Fool experiences before reaching the end. So some examples are grief, sorrow, heartbreak, change, upheaval, chaos, the shadow self, limiting beliefs, addictions, vices, love, union, self-love. Now, when you first buy a tarot deck, the cards are actually in sequential order in the pack. They follow a linear path from the beginning, the Fool, to the end, the World. But when you work with tarot, you shuffle the deck, so the cards can actually come out in any order. So really, the end, the awakening to the truth, can come at any time. It's not really at the end, so to speak. So it's not that you have to go through each theme that the cards represent to get to the awakening or the truth of who you really are, but more that each experience that the card represents is a call back to your true self as love or God, and this is ever present. So even in the tower moments, even during the heartbreak, God is there. Every experience, whether it is painful or joyful, leads back home. The return to love, your true nature as consciousness or God, is available to you at all times. So the end of the hero's journey, it's not when you go through all of the themes in the deck, but it's when you decide. You have the power to do that. And it's all in the realization that love is already here, that everything you experience is only ever calling you back to the truth of who you really are. So how does this relate to manifestation? Well, we start off as the Fool, the beginner, and we have all of these desires that we want to realize, that we wish to fulfill. And as the fool, we are initiated onto the journey. Now, in the beginning, in our naivety, we think that this journey is all about getting desires. We think that manifesting our desires is what will bring us to completion. We believe this is what will make us happy or make us feel loved in some way. So we start to learn about manifestation, and it's no coincidence that these teachings, they seem to just come at the right time, divine timing. And we start to implement these teachings in order to manifest the desires. And we mistakenly think that the entire journey is all about getting the desire. We think that that is the end goal. But really, the desire is just the catalyst for your own awakening. The desire is leading you back to your true self, your true being as God. The function of all desire is really to just lead you back home. It's God's breadcrumb trail. And desire is what makes us move, it motivates us. So you could even see it as your true beingness as God or consciousness is dangling a carrot, and we follow it, and this leads us back home to the truth of who we truly are. And this is not to say that you can't or won't get your desires. Yes, you can, all is possible. But the desires are not really the point of the whole thing. Because here's the thing, you can manifest the desires, but even in doing so, what you will realize that if you are still continuing to seek love or completion or happiness outside of yourself, these desires will not fulfill you. And you will just have more desires and more steps on the hero's journey. And so the journey continues. Because the entire journey of manifestation, which unfolds like a hero's journey, it functions to show you that the self is not who you truly are. So, what happens is that the divine mirror of the manifested reality is reflecting back to you all of these falsities of self. The mirror isn't showing you who you are, it's showing you who you are not. It's showing you who you've confused yourself to be. And it does this through the manifestation of all of these different themes: the grief, the chaos, the tower moments, the rejection, the abandonment, the heartbreak, the searching for love outside of yourself. And this will continue to cycle and cycle over and over until you realize the truth of who you really are. That you are not this false self that believes it is separate from all things. Now, what happens is when these falsities of self are reflected back to us in the form of triggers or unpleasant circumstances, we often mistake these to be barriers or obstacles that we have to overcome in order to get the desire. And this is the ego's way of thinking. It sees it as a lot in a logical way because we're still identified with that false self and we think we need to fix it or heal it ourselves or improve the self, and that in doing that our desires will manifest. So basically we make the manifestation of our desire conditional on this healing process. But what is really being shown to you is not that there are all of these obstacles that you have to jump over. It's just a reflection of who you perceive yourself to be, who you've mistaken yourself to be. And the purpose of this is so that you can become aware of it. It's bringing to your awareness what you were not conscious of before. If there was no mirror, you wouldn't know your own face, right? So the mirror is bringing this to your attention so that you can let go of or release it and return back to the truth of who you really are, which is God or consciousness. And you don't need to try and fix or heal the self because this was never who you truly are in the first place. In fact, when you relinquish this over identification with self, it actually heals rapidly or even instantly all on its own. So, just a quick word about healing because it's important to know what healing really means. True healing is when we realize that we are not the traumatized, hurt, or broken or suffering self that we identify ourselves to be. True healing is returning back to our true nature as God or consciousness. And as I said before, this can be instant, it can be very quick. It doesn't need to be a deep dive or a journey. But when we treat it as such, these false identifications of self continue arising, and we go down this rabbit hole of trying to fix them. And this is endless. And this is why, for some of you on the manifestation journey, it takes years, or you feel burnt out, or you may even re traumatize yourself because you are being reminded over and over again of something that you believe yourself to be. And so you think you have to fix this in order to manifest your desires. But really, you only need to realize that the mirror is showing you what you are not what you are. Now, I know that some people can get quite triggered by this perspective, and I completely understand that because I've done the hero's journey. I've been there. I've done the shadow work, the inner child healing, the medicine journeys, and all of these other modalities. And these things do have their place. They absolutely do. So this is not me dismissing that. But when we get caught up in it, we miss the overall point of the fact that union, or the realization of who we truly are, is available in any moment. It's available right now. We don't have to burn ourselves out or go down the rabbit hole or create more suffering over and over. And I'll be honest, if somebody told me that when I was on the hero's journey, I would have been triggered as well. I would have labeled this whole approach as spiritual bypassing, and I would have felt like it was dismissing the suffering that I had been through in my life. It would have felt like my struggle was being undermined, and in a way it is. And look how hard we fight for that struggle. And I often think that this comes from the way that we tend to see redemption or honor in the hero's journey. When you have been through trauma or a lot of suffering in your life, feeling like you are overcoming that and doing the work and healing it on the hero's journey, we wear it like a badge of honor. I definitely did, because that badge of honor it has this illusion of making up for all of the suffering and all of the pain that you went through. And I think that is why we often fight for it so hard, until you realize that it doesn't make up for that. We're actually still suffering. And we will keep perpetuating our own suffering and argue for this need to heal and this need to improve in order to get to where we want to be, rather than just giving it to ourselves right now, because we're looking for some kind of grace because of what we've endured. But that grace is here now. The world, the return back to love, who you truly are, it's not at the end of the deck. It was there the entire time. The hero's journey ends when you decide that it ends. When you realize that you are consciousness, God, the faceless, formless, the dreamer. And the hero's journey, it gives us this false sense of empowerment, but really, true empowerment is realizing that you can get off the ride at any time. You can come back to your true nature right now. And when you do that, not only will your desires manifest effortlessly, you will actually experience the healing that you're seeking, because you will no longer identify with the self that suffers. The mirror will stop reflecting these perceived obstacles back to you, and the perceived obstacles will disappear.